But back here, Tottenham are under investigation from the FA for objects being thrown from the crowd during the match on Sunday against Chelsea. Tottenham had the lead. They lost the lead. They lost the game. Chelsea won it. But what did we witness? With every corner that Chelsea took in the first half on Sunday, constantly pieces of card, plastic cups were thrown from the crowd at the Chelsea players taking the corner kicks. Many of the stewards around the bottom stand were watching on and spending time clearing the rubbish that had been thrown onto the pitch. But someone you know well, Danny, as we do, Jamie Carragher in commentary, was imploring those very stewards to focus their efforts more on getting people out of the stadium, the ones who were throwing the objects onto the pitch, as opposed to dealing with the rubbish that was being thrown. But is that more trouble than it's worth if you're a steward? Or should we expect the stewards to move in and say, hey, you, it's over for you this game, you're out? Would you as a steward do it? Have you done it? Maybe stewards listening this morning, you don't need to give your name and identify yourself. You can come to air if you want and tell us about your experiences. Were you working on Sunday at that match between Tottenham and Chelsea? Did you stand by as the stuff was being thrown onto the pitch? 03717 223344 81089. Simon, take me back to when you owned Palace. Was it on your stewards to go in and sort out anything such as this if the moment arose?
Well, it was on them to maintain some form of order, and if they were uncomfortable, we had police presence inside the stadium. So you have stadium managers, you have the various supervisors in the very different parts of the ground, and you deployed what you thought was relevant at the time. You've got to manage flashpoints. You've got to manage crowd behaviour. Sometimes going into the crowd to get people to behave themselves causes more challenges than it's worth. You've got policing opportunities. But in the Tottenham situation, they could see what was happening in every single corner. They should have redeployed stewards, perhaps, operationally, to be able to be in a situation where they stop these people from throwing this rubbish on the pitch. So, you know in the second half that there's going to be corners. You know that potentially... Chelsea are going to be taking corners. We know corners will be bloody well taken from. Just position stewards in that area of the ground,
right,
and bank the walls up so they can't throw things on the field.
But yes, Simon, how easy is it to do that when there are multiple offenders?
I'm not asking them to take people out of the ground. I'm asking them to prevent a barrier to stop them throwing things onto it, so you don't have to take them out of the ground. So if you put up a wall of stewards in front of those fans on Sunday to potentially prevent them from throwing things onto the pitch.
Well, it wouldn't because they throw them over them. But the reality is...
It's more of a barrier.
It's more of a barrier. They tried that. But it's a domino effect, wasn't it? The fact they didn't nip it in the bud on the first one or two and chuck a couple out, everyone was like, oh, it's a free-for-all. It's not rocket science. If they'd have just got... The first time it happened, a couple of stewards went, him and him, bam. Everyone sees them getting thrown out. People go, oh, I'm not missing the game. Because it was a good game. You know what I mean? It's not difficult. And the stewards didn't take initiative because they probably thought, and rightly so to a degree, oh, it's a couple of idiots, they won't do it again. Yeah. Then it happened again and they missed the opportunity.
Danny, if you throw one out or maybe two out, Simon, and it keeps happening.
It won't keep happening.
You've got to chuck the lot out, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what Danny's saying is probably relevant, is that you hike people out. I mean, whether the stewards do it or whether they call the police in to come and help them. Because the balance is between what do you expect of stewards? What do you expect? I mean, some of the stewards that you get are 8 stone dripping wet, and they're not going to be dealing with great big football fans in a way that perhaps you would like them to, by the very nature of A, what they're getting paid and put themselves in the way of, and B, what their experiences may be.
But there is a degree of training they've had, Simon.
Of course, they're all MVQ'd. Of course,
it felt like they all.
You wonder what percentage though are willing to take it upon themselves to chuck someone out.
Well, that's about recruitment, that's about managing the resource that you've got, and that's about making sure that the supervisors that are ultimately supervising the team of stewards are on site to be able to make those decisions themselves, because it tends to be that the supervisors or the more robust characters that are doing it more repeatedly and are more senior and will perhaps have the propensity to do the things that might be required if it requires a physical intervention. You then got the secondary position that you're policing stadiums. The police are being paid there. They're a resource. They're paid for by the club. Yeah. So the police can be called into the situation to be able to remove people from the stadium as well.
Well, as far as we gather, no one was chucked out. And as a result, Tottenham are, as I said, under investigation from the FA for the objects that were thrown onto the pitch. So how do you get around this? Do stewards need to go in and deal with it more effectively? Here's Gary, an Arsenal fan, Danny, who's wanting to come to air. Gary, what's your experience of this? What do you want to tell us this morning? Good morning.
I suppose my thoughts are really on it is just there's so many cameras now in stadiums. Why can't you find out who's throwing stuff? It's very easy to throw, just to see what's been thrown by what hand, work out what seat they're in, and then ban them. It's quite simple. And I know that there'll be, you'll be able to say, oh, there's no proof of what. But once you've got these seat numbers and you've got these season tickets, because most of them will be season tickets, you just go back to them and you get you just ban them from the stadium, and then it won't happen again because you just keep banning people.
Got you, Gary. So retrospectively, get onto them later.
That might still happen, Gary. They might be forced into that.
Do and put it on the put it on the they've got
just
the stadium, but they've got massive screens there, so they could put on the big screens and say that you are being watched. If you get caught throwing stuff again, you're going to be banned retrospectively. And,
okay,
that's it.
Fair point, Gary. Dave, I think in Liverpool. Dave, you're a steward, am I right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Hi, Dave. So, what was your take of what we witnessed on Sunday in the match between Tottenham and Chelsea?
All I can talk. Well, you're saying the stewards should have intervened. All in all, sort of my ground, the guys on the pitch, they're pitch side stewards, so they would actually go into the crowd to do it. But you have specially trained stewards called response stewards, so you'll have match day control, actually looking at what's going on. You've got CCTV everywhere, so they know exactly who the culprits are. So they should have just deployed their response stewards along with police backup if needed.
Right.
Okay. So the guys on the pitch.
Am I right in thinking, though, Dan, that Dave, that fans should, the offenders should have been in more jeopardy, and that some of them should have been ejected if they're going to continue to do that? Is it, from your experience, do stewards feel confident enough to go in and eject a fan or fans?
Yeah, normally the people who eject the fans are, well, I can only talk about my club, are response stewards, and they've had training in that. Normally what you do as a steward, you'll give somebody a warning. They basically pack her in, otherwise you're out. Do it again, they're out. It's like vaping. People persistently vape. You give them a warning, if they carry on, then they're always, well, like I said, a bit persistent, then you should just go in and evict them.
Are you a response steward?
No, I don't really want to say what I do, but I'm not a response steward, I'm something else.
Okay. Thank you very much for your call.
Makes sense.
Paul, you were once a steward, I think. I think you're a United fan. What do you want to say in this, Paul? Help us with this.
Hello?
Hello, Paul. Yeah, you're through to us. What we saw between Tottenham and Chelsea. On you go.
Murphy. Hello, just listen to what Danny Murphy is saying. 99% of everything that Danny says I agree with. However, having been a steward previously, what he's saying about going in and taking one or two of them out is an impossible situation to do.
Right. Why?
Because the crowd will turn on you. And the situation is you do not get training. And most people don't even listen to authority with regard to police officers, let alone stewards.
Well, what if those things they were throwing, which were soft tissue-y type things and no danger, were bottles?
What, sorry?
If they were throwing things that were endangering people's heads, bottles. If they're throwing coins, does the same theory apply? It's an offence. Where do you draw the line then as a steward?
I totally agree with you there. The situation is, though, as I said, there needs to be more. It's not on an individual steward or couple of stewards to do it. I've seen situations where even head stewards have come up against quite scary situations. And when you've got a crowd of people, I think the bottom line of it is it needs to be dealt with sort of like they're saying, they need to identify who they are and sort it out that way, because
retrospectively
there's very little police support inside the ground these days because the clubs don't pay for it.
Am I right, Paul? Even as a response steward, it's one thing being able to eject a fan. It's another thing actually doing it.
It's not. It's not so much that. As I said, if as a steward myself, if I go up to someone and turn around and said, what you're doing, stop doing it. If I firstly said to give them a warning and tell them stop doing it, they would turn around and give me a volley of abuse. People just don't take any notice. There's no authority these days. Even police haven't got a lot of authority these days unless they get heavy-handed with people. So how you expect individual stewards to do it?
It's a very good point.
You get the money you get no pay hardly. I mean, when I say you get no pay, you might, I don't know, but I believe you get maybe 50 quid or whatever it is at Premier League grounds these days. The training you get, they give you no training about how to deal with a situation like that. Or,
sure.
Or very limited training, shall I say. Nothing like you would get in the police or the army or anything like that. So, you can't expect people to endanger themselves.
Okay. Listen, thank you very much indeed for the call, Paul. Nonetheless, Tottenham remain under investigation from the FA for the objects that were thrown on the pitch on Sunday.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.